Let's move to our last category, defensive backs. Nick Emmanwori, still unsure about week one. There's all kind of possibilities being tossed around about who might replace him. Bud Clark a little bit, Witherspoon a little bit, D'Anthony Bell a little bit. The net of it is don't try and chase whoever's going to replace him. There's only one like him, and just, if you have him, just sit on him until he starts playing regularly. Jessie Bates for the Falcons has a back injury. It's not that it's that significant. They're being extra cautious. He should be back for the start of the year. Very, very bad news for the Bears, where Coby Bryant, who was originally the knee was hyperextended, only going to be out 8 to 10 weeks. He actually underwent knee surgery. Now will miss 4 to 6 months. He is out for the year. Cam Lewis, who had moved from the slot where he was playing in place of Kyler Gordon, because Kyler Gordon is still out. Cam Lewis got hurt and carted off, but Sean did hear that Cam Lewis was back at practice, but the Bears signed Xavier Woods. Also did some reading that Dillon Thieneman, for all the rookie buzz, is struggling right now in camp. So Sean, at this point in time, the safety mess in Chicago, I think we're staying away from it, maybe?
Yeah, I was already down on Thieneman just based on Dennis Allen's usage. If y'all want to go back and check out our safety show, that was a pretty deep dive I did there, where the safeties in his scheme just don't give us those top 24, production that we need. So already down on this as a group. Xavier Woods is somebody I'm not chasing after Thieneman is going way too high for me to get. I am interested in Cam Lewis because he is moving back to that nickel spot with Woods and Thieneman there, and he is at practice. He was practicing today. He has value, so I expect him to be that starting slot. Kyler Gordon's dead to us.
If Ugo Amadi could have success in the Dennis Allen scheme and be a top 12 cornerback for us in fantasy in that role, even Cam Lewis can as well. Yeah. And by the way, the safety show that Sean just alluded to, you can find that on the NFL IDP Advice YouTube channel. Go check it out. The top 24 repeaters and non-repeaters. Great shows there if y'all missed them. So I'm right there with you on the Bears. Okay, moving on to the Packers. Interesting, at the cornerback, people have been drafting Keisean Nixon year after year, expecting top 12 production. This might be finally the year, or at least top 24, where it doesn't happen. A couple of things happening. First off, Benjamin St-Juste started rotating in place of Keisean Nixon at cornerback for the Packers. That's number one. Number two, Carrington Valentine, who was starting on the outside. He's been banged up with a hamstring. He did start to come back to practice today, though he wasn't involved in team activities. But Brandon Cisse, the second-round rookie, has been starting in his place. I would not be surprised if early in the year we see Benjamin St-Juste and Brandon Cisse as your starting cornerbacks, particularly since Keisean Nixon and Carrington Valentine were both in the last year of their contracts. Sean, you're smiling.
It's funny because St-Juste is a guy I pick up a lot of. If I know who's starting, I pick him up off waivers because this dude gets targeted because he's not very good either. But it's just kind of wild to me that he's getting the buzz over Keisean Nixon, who I view Nixon as a better corner than St-Juste. So it's just kind of wild to me here.
And the Packer fans so want Keisean Nixon to be benched. Yes. Granted, he is not a stud like a Patrick Surtain, for example.
Sure.
But he is. He's
gritty.
Yeah.
I like him.
Willing to tackle.
Yeah, with the safeties they have, I feel that helps cover up, some of his, inefficiencies. But the lack of pass rush is really going to hurt all these guys. Yeah. But maybe that's part of the plan. Maybe St-Juste is a better blitzer here. Maybe that's the reasoning behind this. Yeah, just a weird situation going on with these corners here.
Yeah. So the message here is be careful about how high you draft Keisean Nixon from a cornerback perspective. You don't draft cornerbacks very high to begin with, but as you're selecting your cornerbacks, he might be one to avoid relative to some of the others that are out there in the marketplace, which we're going to hit on some here in a little bit. Last thing I'll mention about the Packers, they're expected to play a lot of three safeties. Nearly 100% of the time is what the word is, which would be great for Javon Bullard. He has a bone bruise in his foot. He said he could play tomorrow, even though he's wearing a boot right now. If he needed to, he could play. So not losing sleep over that. Let's move on to the Bucks. Benjamin Morrison has done basically nothing since OTAs, was expected to be a starting cornerback. Depth chart came out. He is listed second string on the depth chart. They're showing Jacob Parrish, Zion McCollum as the two starting cornerbacks, with the rookie out of Miami, Florida, Keontae Scott, starting in the slot. Now, when they have a second team, when they go to the second team, Jacob Parrish moves down to the slot. But with this setup, it appears to me that Parrish is going to stay primarily on the outside with Scott in the slot. Not to mention that Tyke Smith could, depending on the situation, can actually, or Winfield for that matter, could cover someone out of the slot as well if they really want to disguise things and mix things up. So how does this make you feel about Parrish, McCollum, and Scott, Sean?
McCollum is the guy I put on our top 24 list to move in. This was one of the reasons why, because I expected Parrish to move outside, to not stay in the slot. And I really thought it'd be because of injury to Benjamin Morrison, not, just benched right away. And because I think Parrish is a better corner, I think they'll target McCollum more. That's just my guess here. Keontae Scott has some appeal, but that is a limited role. We're only looking at 60% snaps probably. Tyke Smith and Antoine Winfield are both doing really well in camp, and they are being moved all over the place. So I don't know that we have just a box and a free guy here. I think it's just going to be a split where both these guys are going to be coming on blitzes and just kind of all over the place at different times. And we're not going to know who's going to have the better week in, week out. It's going to get frustrating.
So would you draft Parrish or McCollum as a number 2 cornerback?
Yeah, I think you'd be fine taking either one. I do like Jacob Parrish. I'm just concerned he'll get less targets. Just being the better player in my eyes compared to McCollum. But I think in fantasy drafts, I take corners as my last couple picks, and I'd be fine taking either one of these guys.
All right, fantastic. Moving on to the Chiefs here, where Chamarri Connor continues to play deep safety. And the stats of his performance, granted PFF stats, about how bad it was, particularly in coverage as a slot corner, let's just say it was pretty horrendous. So while he was great for fantasy, there was a reason they went get Kader Kohou. There's a reason they drafted the rookie Jaden Kennedy out of Oregon. There was a reason late last year they started to mix Chris Roland-Wallace into the mix at that slot cornerback role. They interviewed Connor, and they liked the fact that he's going to be more narrow in his focus in the safety role, where he'll get to play a little bit more deep and limited, which plays better to his skills. In other words, Chamarri Connor, unless something crazy happens, will not repeat in the top 24, folks. In the depth chart that came out today, Sean, and then I'll let you talk here, L'Jarius Sneed and Noah Williams were shown as the starting cornerbacks, with Mansour, Dillon, and Chris Roland-Wallace as the 2s. My best guess is when we get to week 1, assuming Delane's shoulder is healthy, it'll be Dillon and Noah Williams out there with Chris Roland-Wallace in the slot. Sean.
Yeah, I was going to go with that too. I thought that was interesting. Just kind of veteran service, I believe, is all that was for the depth chart. Man, I can't believe we still have Jaden Hicks on this team, and they just do not want to get him on the field. Because I feel like he's really good in coverage, and he's really good at tackling. He could play either role well. He just does not get the opportunities. I do not understand Spagnola's issues with him. But another thing on Connor is I'm still seeing him going as a top 5 safety in drafts, in quite a few drafts, and this is with a few experts in these as well. So it's not big news to everybody apparently yet that Connor is not going to repeat this year.
I picked up Chris Rowland for $1 in one of my, in a recent fab run. And I picked him up in another one for $0. So now's the time to strike. Get him. If something changes, it's not costing you anything, but just get him on your bench in your dynasty leagues, folks. Okay. Because if he does close to what Connor did, and he's listed as a cornerback. And remember, Connor was a safety. You could have gold at cornerback. Grab him. All right, let's move on to the Bills. Good news for them. C.J. Gardner comes back from that calf injury, starts practicing again. When they thought that was Achilles, we all were worried that it was bad news, but he is back. Now, switching from good news to bad news with the Bills. Cole Bishop suffered a, quote, lower body injury Saturday night in their scrimmage. It turns out it's a grade 2 hamstring. The start of the season is at risk for him. That means Geno Stone is going to be in there in his place, most likely. And Geno Stone did well last year, but we are not banking on that this year, folks. Do not pick him up. Sean, any quick blurb on that?
I seen Gardner-Johnson is hurt again right now, and Damar Hamlin was the other starter with Geno Stone. So
Gardner-Johnson got hurt again today. I did not see that yet. Wow.
He didn't practice. So I think he got hurt at the end of yesterday's practice, I want to say. I don't think it's anything serious. It's just kind of a precautionary thing here. But still, we're seeing a terrible pattern with Gardner-Johnson there.
Yep, exactly. Injury prone. He's not the biggest guy in the world. Plays very physical. Maybe some of that is catching up with all these injuries are starting to show up. So be careful if you take him there. All right, moving on to the Giants. Paulson Adebo, who a lot of people are taking very earlier than they should as a top 5 cornerback. 2 straight days, haven't seen today yet, but 2 straight days he was practicing with the second team. Deonte Banks was practicing with the first team ahead of him. Yes, that Deonte Banks. Maybe the light bulb is going on. Maybe Harbaugh and them have kicked his butt and he's figured it out or something. But boy, we got to be careful with Debo. I mean, it's one thing to not be playing all the snaps with the ones, but then to suddenly be playing snaps with the twos. That's a bad sign. On top of that, Tyler Nubin was alternating at safety with Jason Pinnock or Pinnock. You choose how you prefer to pronounce it. Drew Phillips has a knee sprain. His week 1 is at risk. Also, Ardarius Washington, who they signed from Baltimore and Harbaugh brought him over, is a risk to Drew Phillips as well. Your message to folks related to the Giants, Sean, based on all that I just rattled through.
That would be to keep an eye on Colton Hood, who is getting some positive praise, and that we put on the corner, or I put on the cornerback show as potential top 24 guy, just because I thought this entire situation is a mess, and it's proving to be quite the mess. So there is nobody in this secondary to draft.
Yeah, I don't want Holland. I don't want Nubin. I don't want any of these guys.
None of them. None of them. Until somebody has the position locked in, and all these guys are very targetable for opposing quarterbacks. So whoever does get locked in, maybe stream them after a few games. But until then, I don't know.
Yep. All right, now moving to the Colts here. Hunter Wohler, who was a late-round draft pick in 2025 for the Colts, he was taking first-string safety snaps, not A.J. Halsey earlier in training camp. When Wohler hurt his hamstring, Halsey then moved in with the ones. He got an interception one of the practices, all kind of noise and positive buzz. But Wohler is now back from that hamstring injury. Haven't seen the reports yet in terms of how the first team snaps went. But as much as I love A.J. Halsey from LSU, had to get that in there, at least he's practicing, unlike C.J. Allen. But boy, there was some serious rookie buzz for both Allen and Halsey. We got to watch this thing very carefully with Wohler, because Wohler may end up starting, because they really liked him last year. Even as a late-round pick, they were using him as a hybrid strong safety / third linebacker in certain schemes before he got hurt during the preseason last year. Don't get too excited on Halsey and draft him too high. And Wohler is another one in deep leagues. Spend $0, or if you can, or maybe $1 or something, and stick him on your bench. There's just something there we got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I was just looking over today's news. He is back and looks like he had a really good practice. I am concerned with the relatively injury proneness he's had in short amount of time. So I do think even if he does win this, You might want to stash Halsey right behind him because I do think he's a bit of a handcuff here. Halsey's going too high in redraft right now for B. But, again, it was all the buzz out of the draft, and Waller kind of came out of nowhere again. So this Colts defense is really confusing me with what they want to do here, and it just could be the injuries. But I find myself liking this team less and less overall. So, again, I'm starting to avoid just about all the Colts outside of DeForest Buckner. But
What about Latu?
I've heard absolutely nothing on Latu, and that concerns me because I would like to hear that he's throwing guys around and he's getting after the quarterback, but I'm not hearing that either. So that's making me drop him a bit as well. Yeah, I want to hear the occasional. He just blew up these guys and made an awesome play, but nothing in camp is not a death sentence, but hearing bad stuff is. So yeah, it's DeForest Buckner for me. I'm really getting turned off by this defense here.
All right, Sean. So in the interest of time, Sean, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run through a bunch more defensive back notes, and I'm going to let you pick, after I run through them all, I'll let you pick a couple that you want to make some additional comments on, okay? So the 49ers, Upton Stout, Raheem Morris, the new defensive coordinator for the Rams, said he's going to be using him like in the Jalen Ramsey role when Morris was with the Rams and Ramsey was an all-pro. Good news for Upton Stout. We love us some Upton Stout. Ji'Ayir Brown and Malik Mustapha were the starters on the depth chart that came out from the 49ers. Surprising because Mustapha seemed to be in a battle with Marcus Siegel, but even with Mustapha out with the hamstring, he is listed as a starter. For the Cardinals in the Hall of Fame game, Taylor-Demerson played and started in the Hall of Fame game, but all the starters for the Cardinals did not play. Buda Baker and Andrew Wingard did not. They were first on the depth charts. So those that were excited about DTD, Taylor-Demerson, you might want to pump the brakes on that excitement. On the Jets side of things, originally it was Minka Fitzpatrick and Andre Cisco starting at safeties, but Dane Belton continues to make a move. Malachi Moore is not really showing much. On the depth chart that came out today, it was Fitzpatrick as one starter and Cisco, Belton, and Malachi Moore as the other three. So that shows that they are in a battle. I'm thinking Belton will take that. Also on the depth chart, Jarvis Brownlee starting in the slot, the nickelback role over D'Angelo Pons. Of course, Pons has hardly practiced during camp. Moving to the Lions with Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph still on PUP. Even with some good news coming out, I'd be shocked if they're playing in week 1 against the Saints. So Avonte Maddox and Chuck Clark appear to be the starting safeties. Depending on your situation, maybe have an Emmanwori and it's a deep league. Avonte Maddox could be an interesting fill-in for that. Roger McCreary is getting trashed from a slot cornerback perspective. Don't expect him to hold that position throughout the year, even if he starts there. The Dolphins, the starters on the depth charts are Dante Trader and Zane Anderson, the former Packer, who knows Heffley's system, came over with him, as Heffley came over from the defense coordinator of the Packers to be the head coach of the Dolphins. Zane Anderson is with him and is starting ahead of Michael Taft, the rookie out of the University of Texas. Chris Johnson, the rookie, who they're very high on, the first-round cornerback, is actually listed as the starting nickel cornerback with Juju Brents and Jason Marshall starting on the outside. Ricky's personal opinion is that Chris Johnson will be starting on the outside as well and will move to the nickel and 3 wide. The Panthers, Will Lee III didn't do well in the Hall of Fame game. We talked about the fact how they wanted to have Jaycee Horn move into the slot in 3 cornerback situations, which was bad for Corey Thornton and or Shaw Smith-Wade. But Will Lee got burned so bad, I don't know if they can afford to do that, and Horn may end up staying on the outside with either Thornton or Shaw Smith-Wade in the slot. I'll also mention the safety position that both Lathan Ransom and Zaki Wheatley, the rookie from Penn State, both played. Ransom was more in the Morig role. Wheatley was in the Nick Scott role. Ransom went out the game before Wheatley did, which would imply Ransom's the number 3 safety. And that also implies that it's still going to be Morgan, Nick Scott as the starters for the Panthers. Lastly, Nate Wiggins was carted off the field today, but right before we started recording, saw word that there is no structural damage per Ian Rappaport. All right, Sean, I ran through a lot of notes there in the interest of time for our audience. I want to make sure I hit all those points. Anything you want to add to any of those that I just talked about?
I'm avoiding Malik Mustapha altogether. Injury prone, soft tissue stuff. I don't want to deal with that, especially on a defensive back safety. I am buying Dane Belton because he's free. And I do think he takes over this thing. And I'm also seeing where he's more of the box safety and Fitzpatrick is deep. I don't know how well that sticks, but that was just some initial reports I'd seen. Roger McCree, sounds like burnt toast out there. Stay away from him. Chris Johnson, I'm with you. I do think he ends up playing outside. I think he's too good, and with the lack of options here, he'll have to play the entire time. Zane Anderson is another one. I'm really liking everything I'm seeing and hearing from the Dolphins. Where I was a little higher on Dante Trader going into the season here. I think I might be more interested in Zane Anderson here, just from a big play perspective.
Interesting.
Just with the hype he's getting right now. Of course, you still early camp, but he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. Upton Stout, I'm right there with you. I think he has a fantastic season. He's still kind of going under the radar here. And I believe the Panthers, I'm still confused on the Jaycee Horn thing here. I think he actually ends up staying more outside. I really don't see where they have the talent to move him around the way they want to in that star role. It sounds like smoke to me.
All righty. Thank you, Sean. All right. That wraps up defensive backs, and that's going to bring a wrap up on our IDP notes, reactions, recommendations, etc. for tonight.